This is a great turnaround that I heard on a Keith Jarrett album on the Alec Wilder tune, While We're Young. So let's break this turnaround down. All right, so first of all, this is the easy version. I am going to be going through a more, intense deep dive on a webinar. So just take a look at Jazzedge Academy for that webinar date. Take a look at the Insights Hub and you'll see it there. All right, so first of all, the basic turnaround here is the F minor chord, then going to a E flat with G in the bass, right? So it's really kind of like an E flat chord with G in the bass. You'll notice in the more complicated version, and I'm going to talk about in that webinar, this is really more like a G7 chord. I'll talk about that later though. And then A flat minor. Okay. So it's your 4 minor chord, which is kind of cool. And then this sub 5, right, which is taking me right back down to that E flat major 7th chord, right? So that E major there, really you could also think of that as almost like a tritone substitution. You could also play an E7 there if you wanted to, but he kind of softens it up by playing it as an E major instead. It's that typical half step major chord resolving down, right? So let's go through this again. Beautiful, beautiful turnaround here. And by the way, a turnaround is just a set of chords, usually 2 measures of a progression, maybe 1 measure, usually not more than 4. And it's just a progression that's going to take us right back to the beginning of the song, right? We could also use this as an ending as well, right? So if I... would work perfectly as an ending. All right, but let's break this down and let's really kind of see this in more of a real world situation. So I took my arrangement of Somewhere Over the Rainbow, which is on the Academy site, right? So I'm just going to take the last couple of measures here, and typically this is what the arrangement would be. So right, and then you go back to the beginning. Right, all of that, okay? So this is my turnaround right here, these 2 measures. Again. And then I would go back to the beginning of the song, right? So that's our typical turnaround. If we apply this Jarrett turnaround to this, now it sounds like this. Back into the beginning of the song. Right? So what happened here is this is the original, turnaround for Somewhere Over the Rainbow in my arrangement. Okay, and you see here that normally we would go to the 1 chord and then go to the 5 chord, the E flat, and then to the B flat. So what we're doing here is rather than playing this measure, instead we're going to replace that measure with, with that Jarrett turnaround. Now you might say, well, wait a second, Willie. In the first one, this is all half notes here. Yes, I just did that to make it a little bit easier for you to read. And you could also do it in half notes or in quarter notes, right? So you could do it slower or you could do it faster. This is just a little bit faster here, but it's exactly the same chords, just in quarter notes, okay? So let's do that together. Whoops, sorry. You're into the song from there, right? So you can see that this turnaround is really kind of neat, and what I like a lot about it is that it goes to that 4 minor chord, right? It's this A flat minor chord, and then it's going to that sharp 1 major chord. I think that transition is really kind of cool. Okay, so now what are some things that you could do with this turnaround is you could also use it as an introduction. So let's say that I wanted to go back into, or I wanted to start Somewhere Over the Rainbow, and it's typically with an E flat chord. I'll just play simple chords, right? So okay, again, the arrangement is all on the site if you want to learn that arrangement. But anyway, starts with that E flat chord. My melody note is E flat. So I could start my song by playing this turnaround, right? And I could just do this much of it. So I can do something like this. So you see how I could use the turnaround as an introduction as well. I could also kind of arpeggiate those notes a little bit. And then I'm back into the song from there. You know, I could do all kinds of things. I could kind of change this around and like... So I could like kind of like do more of a stride kind of feel. I could do more like a... So rhythmically, I could do lots of different stuff with this. I can also bring it into 3. 1, 2, 3. So it's really important that I really learn it and I make sure that I get down that progression before I start trying to, do it in a bunch of different, time signatures and, kind of messing around with the style. So just start by learning it just as it is basically first, right? That's this right here. Of course, you're going to want to learn it in other keys and stuff like that, and I would suggest that join me on that webinar because I'm going to go into this deep dive in that webinar, and you'll be able to access the music and all of the backing tracks and all of that stuff, and the webinar is free. Just go back to Jazzedge.academy. You'll see it right up in the Insights Hub, the webinar. So anyway, thank you very much for joining me on this. If you want the practice actions for this quick tip, just go ahead back to Jazzedge.academy. Again, everything is right up in the top menu where it says Insights Hub. Just go right there. You'll see the quick tips. You can get into the quick tips and you can get the practice actions. What are practice actions? These are going to be short videos that I'm going to show you exactly how to break this down step by step. So if you want a nice practice routine, that would be great for you. All right, so anyway, thanks for joining me, and I'll see you in the next quick tip.